You're listening to Shut Up and Invest.
And welcome back after a long hiatus, holiday vacation.
Man.
We are back to Shut Up and Invest. Friends and family. What's up, J Money?
What's good, man? I'm doing good. This is J Money. That's Jamie. This is we got two J's in here.
Yes.
So, hey, man, I'm just happy to be back, man. It's been a long time. We didn't tape it all last week. We had stuff going on, and the fourth hit. So, it's good to be back in the grind.
I'm not back yet, bro.
I know, I can tell, man. I couldn't even reach Kevin. I had to track him down, call his assistants. He wasn't even nowhere to be.
I'm not back yet.
He wasn't ready for the fourth to be over.
He was not.
My email inbox is going crazy right now. I'm like, I'll be back tomorrow.
Welcome back, man. Welcome back. Hey, I'm excited. Yo. We got a good guest on today.
You brought a ace in the hole today.
Yeah, I had to pull out the big dog status card today.
Jamie, why don't you
introduce yourself?
Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell people what you do, what market you play in.
Sure. So I'm Jamie. I'm a commercial real estate broker. Primarily, our niche market is multifamily apartments and senior housing. I'm also involved very heavily in private equity in the real estate space.
Mm-hmm. And in Miami, right? What locations are you mostly doing?
So
Florida in general.
Yeah, right? So we typically do deals Broward, Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville. Is some of the areas that we participate in pretty aggressively.
Got it.
Now, you're a commercial broker, meaning you'll find the piece of real estate,
Sure.
acting as an agent for someone who's looking for a commercial space, whether it be multifamily properties, warehouse, office space, any assisted living facilities, which I know you're involved in, and
Sure.
we'll do a show. And then on the private equity side of it, you're acting on a different part of that.
Great question. Yeah. So on the private equity side, for those sponsors or that particular investor that's looking to purchase a multifamily industrial space, apartments or senior housing, we are alternative financing for them. Typically, what we find depository banks, when we talk about asset class, B class, C class, which is typically your areas that are not core.
Value add areas.
Banks don't typically like to carry those type of assets on their balance sheet.
Are we talking about the ghetto?
Not B class.
C class.
C class.
Banks will never, you know how the banks are. That's a different story.
So then private equity comes into the mix.
Yeah, private equity comes into the mix. And, typically the process works is I do encourage investors to, if they have a relationship with a depository bank or with a mortgage broker, it's a good starting point. And I think just kind of understanding what the criteria is and where you fall in regard to that. Typical thing that you will find with depository banks, if the asset does meet their requirements, is that your pricing is typically going to be a little bit better. Interest rates are going to be a little bit lower. Terms may be, durations may be more efficient, 5, 7, 10 years. Sometimes we see 20. On the other side, there's scrutiny in terms of looking at financial statements, looking at your experience. How many projects have you managed before? Have you had success in terms of not having setbacks and things of that nature?
So private equity is more asset-based, investor-based.
Completely, right? For the most part.
Compared to depository bank, which is your basic, Chase, Wells Fargo.
Bank of
They're
America.
looking more at your credit score first, and then
they are looking at credit score, yeah. So typically what you'll find, even though there's been a little bit of fluctuation, but 670, 680 for your depository banks, that's just a starting point. Your typical
now that's your Kevin. Kevin works miracles.
There you go.
There you go, Kevin. I got you.
If you like the ghetto, call me.
No, but that's a good point. What is like as a buyer, right? With
Sure.
private equity, what are they looking for as far as Or is there a credit score minimum, or are they more concerned
Private
about
equity?
Yeah, they're more concerned about you and your experience in the asset.
So great question. So what typically works in private equity is looking at cash flows, looking at rent rolls, debt service ratio is always a key component. Somewhere typically 1 to 2, 1.2 ideally is where you need to be.
Can you break that down? Because we have a lot of people who are very, very new. When you say debt service ratios.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so it's just right. Yeah, and I'll try to make sure, because obviously you guys have a variety of followers. Just to not make it more complicated than it is just dividing, the sales price and then coming up with the number that will allow the bank to know that with all of the rent rolls that you have, that you will be able to cover that simply on your rent rolls.
50% off.
50%, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or
the expenses of the debt.
The expenses of the debt,
Yep.
yeah.
Correct, got it. Cool. So, break down exactly what private equity is.
So private equity is a fund that typically invests in off-market type real estate properties that fall under B and C class.
Got it.
So one of the key components I think is really interesting is that over the last several years, with everything that's happened several years ago, there was an opportunity because there was a lack of opportunity for investors that may have had strong financials but not meet necessarily the bank criteria. And so you've seen now over the last 5 years that just a tremendous amount of private equity firms from anything from 100,000 to 30,000, 30 million. I'm sorry.
30 million,
Yeah.
Yeah, so private equity is kind of like the hedge funds.
What it is, you have a couple different markets. So you have what I consider a market that we play in, emerging, and we have the middle market. Middle market for us is typically anything under 20 million. And then you start getting in the corporate market, that starts to get with the big boys, and that those things that typically drive those markets are low cap rates, but the stability of the asset over a long haul. We're talking about holding periods 5 to 10 years.
Got it.
Yeah.
So in English, to break that down for normal people, is anything over 20 million and up, you're in big boy world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it fluctuates. Like, I'll say this. I think, you have, 30, 20 million, but to agree with that, once you go over 20 million, it's a different ball game. A small balance, which I'll mention, is typically been the largest participation, and that's anything typically under 12 million. Yeah. Because that market has really been underserved, just because of the banks have really driven those individuals who maybe want to be borrowers not able to actually solidify financing.
Got it.
Yeah.
And when you talk about cap rates, break down what's a typical cap rate that a fund like the one you participate in is looking for.
Sure.
What is the makeup of a cap rate?
Right. So when you think about cap rates for private equity firms, it varies. So, but I'll say a ballpark figure is anything between 8 and 10. In this market, getting 7 is a win, depending on the criteria and on the backside of the fund, what are the objectives? I would say for someone starting out and just looking just to get their feet wet, the biggest thing that I found and in my experience is you just want to have positive cash flow. Mm-hmm. You really just, that's the goal, right? So what I find is with that, it just allows you to have a stabilized investment. Like even so much so, like some people may say, if you're cash flowing, positive cash flow, $2,000 a month, that's a great investment. Investment,
Instead of worrying about the numbers and the this and the that. Yeah. Basically, if after you pay all your bills, you got 2 G's or more, we can talk.
We can talk.
And the key that you keep mentioning is cash flow, right? Because so many people get caught up on appreciation, right? And
true.
Appreciation means nothing to me because it can be gone like that, right? And the blink is gone.
Yeah.
The true real estate model was built off of cash flow, right? Cash flow was king.
Absolutely.
Right? So, the main thing that still the big boys looking at is what is my cash flow, right?
Correct.
They don't even care about cash so much. What's my cash flow per month from these assets I'm getting, right?
Right.
So what just real quick, what makes up a cap rate? Like, how do you find out the cap rate?
So typically you want to look at the NOI, what is the net operating income. And let's say you want a 9% cap rate. Let's just say you want a 9%. So you would just divide the $100,000 of NOI into the 9%, and that would give you an actual price that you would need to purchase that asset for. And I always say that's a great back of the envelope way to kind of start to kind of build out your financial modeling of kind of checks and balances of other expenses and things of that nature.
Again, because cap rate is more to cash flow. It helps you price out an asset for you based off of what the returns you want. And in certain areas, you kind of know what the average cap rate for certain areas.
Absolutely. Yeah. So your C class, they're going to have typically a higher cap rate.
Higher cap rate.
You're going to be properly 10, 12%. You're getting your B class. Those are typically areas where you have working class, stable incomes. They'll be somewhere between 6 and 9. Just depends. Then you have what we consider to be your A class areas, your downtown, Brickell, those, right. So those cap rates are going to be 5, 6, maybe even 4. The bright side of that, though, is that your risk mitigation is typically much lower. I find with C class, there's a human risk aspect of it, the other challenges that go along with it. But certainly, like you mentioned, adding value and those things, you can offset those. Yeah.
So you make bigger cap rates, bigger returns in C class. However, you deal with a lot more problems.
Definitely.
Because if someone's listening and saying, well, if I can make a 12% return in a C class, why would I take 5% in Brickell? And break down the mindset of what a fund, because I will tell you as what an investor might think, but what about from a fund?
Right. So the fund typically has, I don't want to make it more complicated than it needs to be. So just so that I would want all listeners to get value. So when you look at from a fund perspective, is really looking at managing the risk at its highest level. It's all about risks. So because many of the funds that I deal with, they are concerned primarily just the consistency of the return over a long period of time. And so I'll say this, holding periods typically on the larger funds are 7 to 10 years, depending on the asset. Core assets are your assets in A class, your Brickells, your downtown Las Olas. So for them is more or less, let's just be steady, give the residents a great experience, have low vacancies. And as the market continues to appreciate, we're looking at an exit cap rate that is, the goal is to be each year to increase 1%.
Got it.
1 point.
That's your A class.
That's your A class.
Now, like the C class is more of, you're going to get the cap rate. You need to have a good manager. Is that what they're looking at more? Someone who can manage the C class property because they know there's more issues with tenants and vacancies.
Right. Yeah. So with C class, management is everything. And because exactly to what you guys both alluded to, the challenge is really is what we found is honoring the residents in C class. And doing that is making sure you have very efficient amenities for them, having the right property management that has the right mindset. I think the human element in the C class, more so than just making it wonderful and beautiful, is the engagement that the management staff has with the residents.
That's key.
I found that to be incredibly important, and it has made the model, and it also increased the quality of residence as well. If you live there and you have a good experience, and when things happen, if the AC goes out, not 24 hours, but there's someone going to be there in 2 to 4 hours max to make the necessary fix the necessary, whatever the issues are. I mean, that goes a long ways. And I've seen that in the communities that I've went to visit assets under management, and that's something that, you feel real good about.
How'd you break into that side of the business? Where'd you start, and how'd you actually get to where you're at right now?
Right.
And then now that you're there, what's kind of like that niche that you're focused on?
Sure. So I was laughing with Jory about starting out. A lot of bumps and bruises, a lot of getting raked over the coals. Always had a passion for business, entrepreneurship. I grew up in Miami, in Liberty City. And so that in itself...
Is that A-class area?
Totally not. Totally not. Like, so...
But that experience.
So...
It's an A-class experience.
It was an A-class experience. I really, for myself, I don't think I would be the person I am today if I didn't have that experience. Because I think, you learn about awareness and different things. And then I think you're relatable. And you just feel really fortunate in many ways. So for me, going to Miami Northwestern and, commercial real estate wasn't one of the things that you kind of aspired to do.
No, Miami Northwestern was like
if you got a jump shot, are you running 4-2?
That's the place to be.
That's the place to be. So for me, the interest, it was very young. I owe it to my parents. They certainly played a big role in that. I think just in them giving me opportunities and putting me in situations to have access to things. So which led me to be interested. I thought I wanted to be in accounting. Then I realized no, that's not for me. But now in my life, I read financial statements, understand ratios.
That's so funny because Kevin kind of has the same story with
no
the
way.
CP over there. Yeah. But we all are doing accounting some way.
We are. And I was like, oh no, that's way too boring for me. I didn't have the patience. And so through that, I was in banking, had some success in that space. Got into with my partner, my sister, we own a medical company. And through that, always dibbled and dabbled, did some little things in real estate, got raked over the coals. I was laughing about Jory, like having a deal and not knowing how everything's supposed to work, but thinking you do until you close and your check is like this and their check is that. And you're like, but I thought.
Yeah. Don't assume, right?
Don't assume, So that was painful, those experiences. But I really had a passion for real estate. I was always intrigued, and got the bug. Did some projects. Really inquisitive. Met some really good people who took interest in me and me wanting to explore the real estate world. Started with residential homes in terms of investments, and through just experience and wanting to kind of move to the next level. I'll say this to anyone is that everything's possible. And that, the biggest thing that I'll say, and if I can share, is just like getting your skills up. So, cause that's important. So you have to put the work in. So for me, it was like, I felt like I had to work 100 times harder because I wanted to, because for those years that I didn't have access, then I had to get myself not where they were, but I needed to know more and offer more value. And so for anybody that's in real estate or thinking about getting in real estate, you never stop learning. I mean, we all talk about that earlier. Yep. I'm constantly reading information. I'm always looking at what's the next trend and how to, all the disruption that's happening in the marketplace. So how does that all look, and being a visionary and thinking forward and how to, when everyone's going left, go right. Mm-hmm. Those are things that I've grown into, because typically I'm just, okay, we're all going to just stay on this assembly line. And then it starts to go away, and then it's a panic. So I just didn't want that for me and for people I really, I care about in my life. And so that's what really got me going. I had some success. I got my license.
As a realtor.
Right. Got my license as a realtor, had success in that space. Wasn't sure how that all would work, being a realtor and then doing wholesaling and wanting to do off-market deals, but I figured it out. at a wonderful broker. And then I expanded and decided, after getting my footing, I always encourage finding the right partners. Like, I think if I can go back and like key components and really aligning yourself with the right kind of people. And I think growing up in Miami, you learn quick. Like, you got to figure out, okay, what's a good person? Number one, right? Because if you don't know what that is, then you won't survive. That's just honest, right? So you got to, and that's on every level. And so then how do you measure that? And then you think about, like, what do they give you as an example to show you? Not when you first meet them, but as you start to build a relationship. Are they consistent? When you call them and you say, I have a deal, this is just how it transitions into business. Does it take them 4 days to call you or 2? Are they transparent? Even when they don't have to be. So for me, that's how I am. So if we're doing a deal, I'm going to call you anyway, even if I don't need to bring you up to speed. It's those little things, because the higher the level of trust, then the more efficient you are to work together.
Definitely.
Yeah. And
partnerships are big, man. We talk about it all the time. Partnerships, but the trust factor, that's key.
Yeah.
That's key.
Yeah. So that's my spiel for, getting into it. So my niche is, I love multifamily, have some great relationships on the off-market side, with some great guys who've mentored. And I recommend that. But what is a good mentor? So I think those things are like understanding, having your team and finding a good CPA, a good mortgage broker, and a good attorney that you can work with and you can share insight with and you can work together. I think those things to me are like your foundation, help you really get your footing. I learned the hard way. When I started, I didn't have those things. So I had to, meet people, go out, engage, and then kissed a lot of toads. But inevitably, I have a great group of people that they're phenomenal. And, we all work together and we've had some great success.
When you say multifamily, that can be 2 units duplex, or that could be 375 units. What wheelhouse right now is kind of your bread and butter?
Sure, we're like 50 units and under. Yeah, so that's kind of our, now we're engaged. Just like everything, the numbers have to be right. But we found a really strong niche in multifamily apartments, in the senior housing space. And 50 units and under. I really just love that. But the interesting thing for someone out there, that if you've mastered the financial modeling for 5 units, not much different in mastering it for 15 to 20. The numbers just get larger, and you just have to manage the project differently in terms of your expenses. Obviously going to be a little bit more higher because of the fact you have more doors, but
the basics remain the same. And
basics of the financials are the same. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And what kind of activity? I mean, kind of like a multifamily update right now. Like, what kind of activity? Are you seeing increased activity in multifamily? Are you seeing it like slow down? Like, what do you see now in today's current market state from your side?
I see a lot of the big funds who aggressively, purchasing multifamily, your core assets at very low cap rates. So typically that indicates in the marketplace that they're projecting a long hold. And I'm seeing that in Tampa. Particularly, I see a lot of growth. I've been up there quite a bit. Particularly, Richard Bronson just purchased Brightline, or he purchased the rights to, put his name's trademark on the trains and
the Brightline, which is the new high speed.
That high speed train that goes right now. I think it just goes up to like West Palm.
Yeah, I saw that they're expanding to Orlando next. So they're going to go the whole.
They actually did. State? They actually broke ground. In Orlando. And so
I wish that was already running. I got to drive to Orlando in the morning. I take the Brightline in a heartbeat. But he's actually on as pretty much a brand ambassador for that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's a partner with them. So I see that those areas, particularly as you go more up north, you're seeing, better returns. I think areas in Alachua County area, Gainesville, Jacksonville, Duval County. Jacksonville is crazy to me. The amount of growth that they've had in Jacksonville is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So there's still value in those areas, but what you see happening more so is that holding periods are going to be much longer. So for the investor that may be looking for higher cap rates, those are going to be hard to come by, more so than ever before. Just because of the fact that the big guys they're not buying for cap rates. Mm-hmm. They're buying to hold and wait, just ride out the market and cash out 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm. That's the model.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, for an investor that's sitting here listening to this and saying, I would love to focus on trying to build a relationship with these people that own anywhere between 8 to 50 units.
Sure.
However, I don't have the money nor the credit.
Sure.
But I can get in front of these people.
Sure.
From your perspective on the other end, if you have one of these hungry, I'm not scared, I will market, I will call, I will knock on doors, I will be in the golf resort that they hang out in, and eventually gets someone to say, I would sell you my multifamily for 3.7.
Right.
Now what? Because now he has a guy that's going to sell him 30-something units, 40-something units at 3.7 million. I don't know if that's a good deal or not. I don't even have the money. What do I do now?
Yeah.
Right. So, and they have no experience.
No experience.
I would highly recommend a mentor. I think that, one of the hard lessons I had was thinking I'm a pretty sharp guy and that I'm going to figure this out on my own because I want to capture all of the commissions, right? And if I can share anything, particularly on your first deal, as you move up in level of doors, it's just important to get off to a great start. And the value that you'll have for partnering with someone that has experience, successfully have had an acquisition, you can't put a price on that. I think if I can say two things, the first one being the amount of inexperienced investors who just said, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own, I'm going to figure it out, that have failed, highly probable. For the individual who said, you know what, I'm not sure, but I'm going to make the necessary documents I need to have in place to protect my position in that particular, transaction. Those individuals have successfully won, and they've created a relationship that now, as they're working towards getting their next deal, they've demonstrated that they could partner with someone. It's been a successful transaction, and now you can build on that.
What kind of documents are we talking about? If I have this deal in place and I approach someone like yourself, because I hear this podcast and I say, I'm going to look this guy up
right.
on LinkedIn. I'm going to send them an email. But how do I know I'm not going to get screwed from this deal? Because that's usually what people are worried about.
No, that's a great point. So the first thing I recommend that you do, and I don't want to say, I have an attorney, he handles all that. Although on the preliminary, we have general agreements that we have in our firm. I would say a simple agreement that would just indicate your position in the transaction, what expectations, a simple joint venture would be an ideal way to do it. And then it outlines what everyone's, what the expectations are. Are you contributing any capital? Are you not? What can you expect if the transaction, and I'm saying a lot of things, but it's very simple. It doesn't have to be a document,
just kind of clearly,
a 10-pager.
Just clearly indicate what each person is bringing and doing, so there's no confusion.
There's no confusion. I think that I see most, and I think it gives wholesaling, I think it gives investment syndications and partnerships a bad name. I think because people make the assumption, he's a great person, I'm a great person, she's a great person, I'm a great person. And I think what I found in every deal that I do, we always have documents. It's just a way to honor the other person. I think if I honor you and I say, hey, listen, I think we're going to do great, we're going to have success, but let's just put this in place so that we each can sleep at night. I just think you can't lose when you do
and
that.
we've worked on some deals where like we've had that conversation. Like, hey, Jamie, this is what I'm doing. Joey, this is what I'm doing. You know, right then and right there. So we all know. So that there's no any kind of confusion because like you said, if you assume something and you get caught with the 1/3 of the check, another guy gets a 2/3. So.
Right. So I bring this deal.
Sure.
Right. Let's call it 40 units, 3.7. I don't know anything about anything. I'm just telling you my position in this is I got the guy that wants to do a deal.
Sure.
You say, okay, let's put a joint venture agreement together.
Sure.
So we're protected. You draw this up. I look at it. Looks great. We sign it. What's next?
So then at that point, once you have the deal, depending on if you have the deal under contract. So if let's say it's under contract. So hopefully you've given us, I would say on the long side, 70 days due diligence, right? Just saying.
While you're there real quick though, but that's normal for these types of deals, right? These aren't like 2-week close types of deals.
No,
exactly.
No. We're, So typically I find 50, 60 days. I'm a 60-day guy.
Is that due diligence or closing?
Due diligence.
That's due diligence.
Yeah. So because you want to give yourself enough time to get all the required documents you need, the financials, all the things that go along with evaluating the deal and making sure that the deal is quote unquote what the financials say they are online or on the general document. Typically we require too that, we want to Schedule E. I mean, I think that's not unreasonable. And the Schedule E is just showing exactly what the asset actually did over a period of time.
In the eyes of the IRS.
Correct.
The Schedule E is found in your tax return.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so then we also asked for the T12, trailing T12. We want to see what the rent rolls were so we can look at vacancies. Is there anything that looks unusual?
The last 12 months performance.
Yes.
And what prevents this from being a fabricated financial statement? Or what kind of due diligence on your end when you're evaluating it within the first 60-day period?
Right.
To make sure that I just don't have a really good friend that knows QuickBooks and could make this look like the best thing since apple pie and vanilla ice cream.
Right. So for us, we have our own CPA, and I want to use technical, but forensics, they have all these these technical words for it. The guy is really great at what he does. What I find, and I'll say this, don't be a CPA. Right. I think that I see that.
Hand that off to someone else.
Hand it off. It just makes sense. I know sometimes we can all think that, well, it can't be, but we're talking about the difference between having a successful transaction and possibly getting a terrible asset. And then it just goes into a really dark place. So first and foremost is validating the authenticity of the actual financials. I think without that, you have nothing. And so that to me is everything. And then from that point on, then it's just doing a financial modeling of, what true expenses they are, what set asides, you want to look at the leases, when are they going to expire, any environmental issues, particularly when you start talking about multifamily, and I won't get too much into that, but environmentals are critical as well. Because if there's issue with environmentals, it can prevent you from actually closing a transaction. So those things, the financials, doing a financial modeling. I don't tell anybody to go out and become an Excel expert, but I do think there's really value in having a good understanding of what are your hard costs, what's your soft costs, and understanding how do I leverage being able to reduce my expenses. What are some immediate things I can do to do that?
Because if Uncle Pepe does landscaping for 40 units for $300 a month, that might not be what you want to continue to bank on.
Correct.
If you become the owner and then 300 turns into 3,000.
Kevin gives excellent analogies. I thought I did, guys. I'm always like sports.
Uncle Pepe.
Right? Yeah. They're awesome. I just see Uncle Pepe. I just see a guy,
in Hialeah.
comes up in his truck.
Don't worry, $300. I got this.
I got this. No, they told me it was gonna be 2,000. No, 300.
So is that the key to like actually verifying the numbers? Is you see a number that you know can't be done for that price, and then you're goes, hey, we got to double check this.
We're gonna go with Uncle Pepe. Yes. So,
or maybe you call Uncle Pepe and say, hey, can you do this for?
Yeah, I call Uncle Pepe. Uncle Pepe said, yeah, no, I really did it for 150. Oh man, tear the deal up. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, we in trouble. Yeah. So no, absolutely. That is a great analogy though, and I think you have to verify. You have to check those things out. I mean, if a deal seems too good to be true, it's probably not true.
Right,
you know, I think you know those are the things. And I think more so now, I think you have to have that kind of concentration of focusing on like really not skipping steps. I think that's something that I really pride myself and everybody does on our team is really, you know, processes. I'm big on that, and systems. You know, I talk about those things all the time. You know, no matter what size of the asset, if it's a 1-2 unit, a duplex, triplex, you know, don't skip steps, you know, because I think what you want to do, this is the time I use an analogy. It's like a guy who plays a basketball, right? So you want a guy who can dribble, shoot, pass, and also rebound and play defense. Our guy that always he can just shoot. And so when you think about that, I always think about steps. Like, so we just want to be really consistent, and I want to encourage other people to be consistent in a process.
And don't focus on just one thing.
Correct. Yeah.
What's the steps now that Kevin came to you and Uncle Pepe checked out and you guys were all set with the numbers, right? So how would it work as far as you two in a partner now, you're the private equity side, right? That's the side that's going to finance it. What's the typical process to get to the financing, get approved to actually finance that deal?
Yeah.
And like what kind of down payment?
You guys don't always have to finance on the private equity side all of it, right? You can make up the difference. If a bank's willing to give you 70%,
sure.
Yeah.
The private equity will come in with the difference.
That's a great point. Those deals exist. They've become more difficult now just because being in second position, for the most part, that's what is kind of considered. But no, absolutely. And then there's always the option, and I think across the board in private equity is also partnering on the deal.
Right. That's when they come in.
So you would kind of partner as far as equity. They're going to get equity on the deal.
Sure. Like, so if a sponsor, you know, says, hey, listen, you know, I want to, once we actually get
you say sponsor, you meaning the
borrower.
buyer,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll say borrower. You know, I'm just so used to saying sponsor. It's a terrible habit. You know, guy from Liberty City is always saying sponsor.
I say the same thing every Tuesday in my AA meetings. So I get you. I got a little confused there, but
that's why I wanted to make sure because Kevin was getting flashbacks.
I was like, wait, I think I'm late. No, wait, I got another hour.
Yeah, so kind of explain that model of partnering with your sponsor, you know.
Yeah. So what typically when you look at a deal, you want to look at the financials of the borrower, and you just want to get an idea. Like typically, the first thing I would do is want to have a financial statement of what assets, you know, what liabilities
that the borrower himself,
has, right? And we just want to kind of qualify him to just see where his footing is. You know, and it's not a deal breaker if you don't have experience. I think the things that you really look at is stability in terms of having income, right? And when you look at bank statements, you know, so that's one of the really unique things about private equity is unlike depository banks, they're going to look at your W-2s, you know, tax returns. They want to look at everything. And if one of those things are out of order, credit score,
it whacks it all out.
What typically happens is we're working on trying to get you through underwriting for about 60, 90 days. And then, you know, Uncle Pepe come over and give you a call. Oh, God. Gosh, I thought I could get it through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you're on the clock. And that's the part of that. You're on the clock. So in private equity, it's asset-based. So we're always looking, as I mentioned earlier, you're looking at rent rolls, you're looking at cash flows, you're looking at, you know, hard expenses, things of that nature. And you're looking at adding value. And so the underwriting process is pretty early up front, unlike depository banks. You know, they got to get you through okay, let's make sure that, they had a 720, not just through trade lines, but they had it for several months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the process works. You're going to be, I think the ballpark figure would be, then it's a formality of evaluating the asset. But then the great part is figuring out what the sponsor or the borrower is going to be responsible to participate in as a down payment, because that's really the key, right? So that varies. Typically in private equity, it's going to be 20%. That's kind of the golden standard across the board. There are exceptions. I mean, I think Kevin mentioned earlier, experience is a very key point of that, but typically 20%. And really giving honest information, private equity firms, probably going to be 25 to 30 when it's all said and done. That's the honest truth.
Now, if I bring the deal, and like I said, I have zero experience, I don't even have money.
Sure.
But I got the deal.
Sure.
I'm approaching you not in finance this because I have 20% down, because I don't.
Sure.
I'm approaching you as, can I bring you guys in the deal because you guys have
Sure.
Exactly, yeah.
the experience and the capital.
Sure.
Just give me the piece to start getting my feet wet.
Sure.
And then we get the other 70% from the bank and we partner on this deal. How, for someone who's listening and saying, do I even spin my wheels or do I just stay playing in the single family home, duplex and triplex?
Sure.
Because that type of idea is just too big for me.
Sure. No, absolutely not. I think for us, we welcome those participants who've uncovered a deal in some way, shape, or fashion. We welcome the opportunity to, sit down, discuss the deal, and be very transparent too, as well as it may not be as good a deal as you may think it is, and help you understand why it's not. I think, So we would be very interested if someone had a deal that they weren't sure about where to start, or even just, I'm just honest, man, just want to help people get better and not, just because I was raked over the coals, and I think we all have to some degree, doesn't mean that I want to see someone else. And so we're real genuinely passionate about what we do. And so someone had a deal and they say, hey, listen, Jamie, I got this deal. I'm not sure where to start. I don't even know if it's a good deal. How can we make this deal work? And so then we'll look at a couple of different scenarios. So the first question is, well, where do you see yourself? Are you in position to provide capital? You may not be. That's fine. So then what does the deal need to look like for you? And then giving that person an opportunity to say what it needs to look like for them, we can say, okay, based on us, analyze the deal, this is where we could be. Yeah. And then saying...
So you're basically saying, don't be scared to approach you guys.
Not
a lot
at
of guys are sitting here like, wow, there's no way I can do this. I can't trust anybody to bring this deal to.
Sure. Dispel the fear, man. I'm big on, I think, fear in general is one of the things that paralyzes people. And, whether it's real estate, or, mergers and acquisitions, businesses, or anything you're pursuing, fear is one of the greatest things to keep people stagnant and not to even step out and try. So don't be afraid. What's the worst thing can happen? I think you guys had a segment I joked around about, making cold calls, right? I've made cold calls. I'm happy to say I made cold calls. I'm not too good to make cold calls. And so when I say that is to say, what's the worst thing that can happen? In your mind, oh man, they're going to know where I'm at. They're going to come and get me. This is not going to be good. Oh, this guy's going to say, this person's going to I'm going to feel worse than I already do. No, you're not. So.
That's key, man. My mom always told me, I would be like, oh, I'm afraid to ask you. She goes, the worst I can say is no. No. That's the absolute worst, right? Yeah. So I remember hearing that my whole life. It's like, I don't care. The worst you can say is no.
If the deal's not in Florida, you're still interested in looking at it.
Yep. Very much so. Yep.
No matter where in the United States.
No matter where. Yeah.
I think it's Smart Money Life segment.
I think it is. I think it's time you're on the spot right now real quick. I got some questions for you.
Oh man, you guys, oh no. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, we don't send out a pre-email.
Oh wow.
If you could go back and start day one, but broke.
Sure.
What would be step one?
That you would do right now.
If I went back and I was broke, I would try to align myself with individuals that were not broke. It's the truth.
Good answer, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey. And I think if anybody's out there, I think, you got to think about like, okay, and it's true. I mean, we have friends from everywhere, right? So, but I think if there's one thing, it's just like, you got to align yourself with the right people. I always say, because that can cost you time. You can't buy time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amen.
Definitely.
Biggest mistake you could go back and change?
Being a knucklehead. That's for me, man. Totally, man. I wish I could sit up here and be like, oh, I did all these things right, man. I think I'm so grateful, man. People poured into me. And, I think growing up in, I say this, I love Miami, but growing up in Miami, everybody doesn't always get somebody to take interest. So I was so fortunate that I had people that would just keep nudging me along. And eventually, my knucklehead, things started to absorb. And so that was huge for me. Yeah.
Personally, the top investment goal you're focusing on right now for your personal?
Affordable housing. That's something I'm very much involved with in North Florida. We've had some success in under 50, units and townhomes. So that in workforce housing. I mean, those things, I like those models. I think there's a major need for workforce housing and also affordable housing.
What's workforce housing?
So for anyone like municipalities, for individuals, teachers.
To provide them with affordable housing for...
Yeah. Workforce housing is typically when you see for like policemen, firefighters, our teachers, providing them housing that is feasible based on...
That's tough right now.
It's tough. It's really tough. Yeah.
I do a lot of teachers. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
The top software that currently right now makes your life easy?
Oh yeah, I love, like, I'm big into that now. Major over the last, people used to tease me because I'll be honest, I really wasn't. I'd be like, oh no, but now like
apps.
So yeah, so I use RPR. It's a platform. Yeah, I like RPR. It gives me all the analytical data, big data.
That's a software tool that breaks down properties and gives you all the information.
Yeah, you can
It's like
actually
an MLS. It's like an MLS system.
Yeah,
that gives you the whole country. We use it a lot. We send back different reports. So I love RPR.
Yeah, I love RPR. It's user friendly. Yeah.
What's your number one disconnect to forget about everything we just talked about?
Oh man, I love this thing called Orange Theory. Like I go and torture myself in there.
You always come out of Orange Theory.
I know. I love that place, man. It's like, it's mindless. Like they just tell you what to do. Like get on that thing and then roll that and then lift that. I love that. I love it because you go and you work out and you're like, what am I going to do today? So I would do chest like 9 days a week. Right? It's the truth.
It is.
Right? So that's not good. So I found like that is just like
System and a process.
Hey man, this guy, he's good, man. I'm gonna have to take some of his analogies. I know I'm taking the one that we talked about, Alcapepe. Yeah, that's, if you don't mind, brother.
Come by like on Saturday. He's gonna be out front.
He handles all our properties. He'll make your balance sheet look good.
So Orange Theory, right?
Yeah, it's just Orange Theory. Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, man. It's monotonous, but it just allows me to go in there for that 1 hour and I just kind of just do my thing and
as which we're all busy, I can see where that's kind of like you go in there, it's quick. They work you out, no waste of time.
Nothing, yeah.
Back to work.
Yeah.
Tell people how they can contact you, bring different deals to the table, what kind of deals you want to look at, how they can reach out.
Sure. So they can reach me directly at 954-266-8627. That's actually directly to me. And they can look at our website. It's www. I have to kind of think it through. Baker, Baker, and Maxwell, CRE.com. It's actually Baker and no and in the actual web address. So it's Baker
We'll put that up,
Maxwell CRE.com. We're always, willing to share. You guys are fantastic. So, anyone that contacts my office, anybody on our team, we're gonna give them number love. And I'm gonna let you guys know too.
Mm-hmm.
If someone contacts us and just trying to figure some things out, or if they have any questions, we wanna show love to the community.
BakerMaxwellCRE.com.
Instagram, you're on Instagram too, right? You just started getting active.
I'm working my way to that.
He just got on there.
Yeah. You guys are going to be the catalyst for that for me.
The social media.
Yeah, I'm working
social
on
media
that,
awareness.
We'll get you going.
You guys will get me going on that. Yeah.
What kind of deals you want to see?
Multifamily is something that we like to look at. And senior housing is good as well. Apartments. We like fourplexes too, threeplexes. A good deal is a good deal for us. I mean, we...
Are you guys interested in turning some of these fourplexes and stuff into senior living facilities?
We can. We just have to kind of see the criteria and the infrastructure, how it's all built out. But absolutely. We're always looking at, repositioning, opportunities, assets and so forth. Yeah. So
we got to do another show on that.
Dude, listen, the assisted living thing, me, him, and another friend of mine been getting heavy in it, asking him questions because he's already in it. But that's something that I'm diving in here really soon. So we definitely have to have him come on and talk about that for sure. Yeah,
I'd love to, man. It's been great, man. You guys are awesome, man. Makes it, real fun. And, I got to tell you, I really enjoy myself.
Cool.
Yeah, you guys, it's nice when you get to chill, talk.
Yeah, we like to have a laid back.
You guys are really,
in the living room.
Yeah,
Miami. Let's wrap it up.
Jamie, man, taking time out of your day to come on and give.
Thank you, brother.
No, man.
Some good information that
Thank you.
A lot of people don't know about, but they have questions about that I think you definitely answer some questions and also encourage some people, the person out there who doesn't think they can do this, who now says, hey, at least I know someone I can at least bring a deal to or talk to, and I can kind of get in there, So,
sure. And not be scared.
Yeah. And we have a lot, like when I'll say this, I have been fortunate enough to build out relationships. So, got some great people, not just myself, but just willing to really, share and give insight,
Awesome. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Great
My
episode.
GoPro's going to about to die. So we're going to hit the next episode. I appreciate you, brother.
All right, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, brothers.
Hey, thank you once again for listening to Shut Up and Invest. If you guys are motivated at the thought of continuing your real estate journey with us, then visit shutupandinvest.com. There you can join the community and take advantage of more free resources. And don't forget, please like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast so you're first to hear our new content every week. Most importantly, get active and don't forget to shut up and invest.